So with React 19 just around the corner, let's take a look at some of the new features and improvements and how we can use them to improve our existing projects. I separated the new React 19 changes into 3 major categories: action support, server components and actions, and various quality of life changes. And today we'll take a look at actions, specifically the following hooks: useTransition, useActionState, useFormStatus, and useOptimistic. So when we talk about actions in the context of React 19, we're talking about asynchronous functions. So usually something like performing a mutation and then updating the results in the user interface. A common example would be something like a user submitting a form. So we have one such a form over here, and what happens is if I type in my name and press update, it will trigger an update on the backend, and then the change will be shown in the user interface. This form also returns an error. If I type in admin, it will tell me that I should choose a different name. I can also change it to actually reflect the error message. I'm not actually making a call to the backend, I'm just faking it with this update name function, which really is just a promise checking whether my name is admin or not and taking 2 seconds to resolve. So as of right now, we actually are handling everything by ourselves. We're handling our data, we're handling our error state, our loading state with this isPending state over here. And this should no longer be the case in the new React 19. React should handle everything for you. So let's take a look at the new features and see how we can improve our code. The first hook I wanted to take a look at is useTransition hook. So let's import the hook. So if you're not sure what this hook does or when to use it, I'll try to provide you with a quick refresher. The way useTransition hook works is if you set several states at once, React will batch those updates together and then trigger exactly one re-render of the UI. But if one of those state updates takes a really long time to update the UI, such as rendering a long list, it will block the faster state update, such as user typing in an input. If you wrap the slower state update with useTransition, it will kick the state update out of the priority bundle. The state update outside of the useTransition hook will re-render the UI first, and only after that the low priority update re-renders the UI. This makes the slow state update not block the fast state update at the cost of another re-render. So the new version of the hook now actually supports asynchronous functions. So we can just wrap our asynchronous function body with this hook and we'll get its pending state that will enable us to remove this state over here. So let's try to do that. First, let's call the hook. And the useTransition gives us 2 values. First is the isPending state. And the second one is a start transition handler method. And the way to use it is just to wrap our function body with the start transition. So let's do that. Obviously it needs to be a synchronous function since we're using async await. And now what happens is the isPending is actually set automatically at the beginning of the function execution, and it's set to false when the function finishes its execution. So we can also remove the finally clause over here, and we can remove the set isPending over here. And now everything should work as previously. So let's try that. So I can update my name and I can trigger an error. But React 19 can do even better than that with useActionState hook. So let's import the hook. And what this hook does is it's basically useTransition hook on steroids. It gives you an access to the previously returned value as well as to the form data object. And you can use the previously written value, for example, to hold an error, which is really cool. So let's call the hook. And I guess we can remove the useTransition hook because it will basically replace the hook. So let's try to do that. We can remove our handle submit, I guess, since we will no longer need it. And in order to use this hook, you need to bind the submit action to the form, specifically to the action property. You can also bind it to the button like this. But for our purposes, we will bind it to the form. Also, the button needs to be a submit button in order for this hook to work. So now what happens, the useActionState actually wraps the synchronous functions that you provided as a parameter and gives you an access to the previous state, which is basically the same as previously returned value. So let's name it the same way. And also to the form data object. Let's console log out the previously returned state. So right now it will be undefined. We need to actually return something in this asynchronous function for it to take any value. So let's return the name for now. And let's console log it out. I'll try to make this bigger. So if I update the form for the first time, it will be undefined, because the previously returned value is undefined, obviously. But if I update the form for the second time, it will be actually John. Now, one cool way how I can use it is to store the error, for example. So let's see what I mean. Let's remove the console log and let's rename it to error. And obviously let's just comment out this hook. We also need to remove the set errors here. And let's not return the updated name here, but let's actually return error in our catch statement. So now if I update form like this, nothing will happen. But if I update form, with admin, I'll get an error. Now, in order to get rid of this error, I should also return null just in case the update actually goes through. So let's do that. So now we got rid of the error state, so we can remove it. But we also have an access to the form data. Now, form data is an object that holds the form values. So we can, for example, get the name from form data. So let's do that. You need to use the get function to get the value. And since we can use the form name to update the name here, we no longer need the state. So let's remove the state as well. And let's remove the onChange handler. Let's try that everything works like before. Good. Yeah. Now we can also put underscore before previously written value just to silence the slint. Now another hook that I wanted to take a look at is useFormStatus hook. So let's import it, and this time we will import it from React DOM. And this hook will give you an access to the form properties in nested components without having actually to drill the values. So in order to use this hook, we will need to create a nested component, and we will create a submit button and separate our button into this component. So let's do that. And let's replace our button with the submit button. Like this. And let's call our hook. Now this time we are deconstructing an object, so we actually need to be precise with our naming. And the first value that we can get out of the useFormStatus hook is pending. So let's replace the is pending with pending. And something is broken. Oh yeah, we are not returning the button, so let's return it. And everything should work as before. And we didn't have to drill the pending through the properties. So it not only returns you the pending, but it also gives you an access to the form data. So let's console log it out. So if I update my form, I can see the form data object. So I can get my form values with the get function as previously shown. Now another information that I can get out of this hook is method, which is my update method. So let's console log it out. It's usually get or a post, so let's see. I'm just faking the backend here, but I guess the get is at the default. So, and the last thing I'm getting is a reference to the form action that I'm actually submitting the form with. So let's console log it out. Yeah, so this is quite useful if you want to call the action from the submit button. Let's remove the console log. And the last hook we will take a look at is useOptimistic hook. So let's import the hook. And this hook will allow you to optimistically update a state value and revert it just in case the update fails. So let's see what I mean. Let's actually call the hook. Now to use the hook, you need to provide it with the state that you want to optimistically update. So in our case, it will be name. And the hook provides you with two values. The first one is the optimistic value, in our case, optimistic name, and the setter, which is set optimistic name. Let's replace all our name usages with optimistic name. And obviously we're using isOptimistic instead of useOptimistic, so let's fix that. And let's update our optimistic name right over here at the beginning of our asynchronous function. So set optimistic name, and it will be a form name. Now what happens is if I update my name, the React will pretend that the update already went through. So I should see the John right away. But the hook is smart enough that if it actually falls into the catch statement, it will revert the change. Yeah, and it reverted the change to the previously updated name, which is John. Now the hook also provides you with an access to the update function, which you can use, for example, to signal the user that the update is taking place. So let's see how to do that. In the update function, you have an access to the current state and to the optimistic value. And whatever you will return from this function will be the new optimistic value. So let's return optimistic value, for example, plus updating. Oops, optimistic value. Like this, yeah. And let's put underscore in front of the current state. And now if I update the form to John, I will see the updating flag over here, which will disappear once the update goes through. Now we can also remove the update, the loading state, just so we pretend that the update already went through, and we can also remove the is pending state over here. So let's try. So this works, and if it falls into the catch statement, it leads to an error and reverses the change. So this has been some of the ways how you can make your code a little bit cleaner and your UI look a little bit more responsive with new React 19 features. I hope you found this video helpful, and I will be looking forward to the next video, where we'll be this time discussing server actions. Thank you for watching.